Hello, art friends. My name is Miss Carrie, and welcome to Good Friend Art Studio. And today I'm going to show you how to draw Baby Yoda. He is one of the most adorable little critters that I've ever seen. And so I've been dying to do a drawing of him, and I'm excited to show you how to do this. So before I get started, let me talk to you just a little bit about the drawing today and some expectations and some materials. So yesterday we did Claude Monet's little frogs on lily pads, and they were adorable. I was so excited to see all of the great artwork coming in afterwards. And that was really a good art lesson for anybody who was ages 4 to 8 years old, but you can, adults can do a frog on a lily pad too. Today, we're taking it up a notch. And this art lesson is a drawing lesson, and we can use chalk pastel or colored pencil or even crayon, but it's going to be a little bit harder. So I just wanted to warn you ahead of time, because anybody in any age is welcome to give this art project a try, but I don't want you to get frustrated. So I'm going to do the drawing, and then we're going to do some coloring, and you have a couple of options. You can draw along with me. I do go pretty fast just because I'm not walking around a classroom helping everybody. I'm just going at my own pace. You can also wait and just watch and wait until I'm done. And then once the video is posted, you can watch it at your own speed. You can put Miss Carrie on pause and do what you need to do. So sometimes that's a little bit helpful to watch it afterwards and draw along at your own pace. If you have a child who wants to do this art project, but the drawing portion of it is a little bit too difficult, then I have posted on my Facebook page, if you look at the announcement where it said that we're going to have this lesson, under the comments, I posted a drawing of Baby Yoda. You can print that out and they can color along with me as well. So they'll still learn shading and those types of concepts. They just won't have the difficulty of trying to draw it and get it perfect. But I will be going step by step. So it's entirely up to you if you want to jump right in and do it with me or if you want to wait. But I'm excited to teach you this because he is super, super cute. And I'm going to teach you using chalk pastel, colored pencil, and crayons. So you have 3 coloring options today. I'm also operating the camera while I'm drawing, so please forgive me. This is not my expertise doing these videos. I just want to get it out there so that you have a little bit of fun while you're staying at home. All right, so let me get set up. I'm going to move our completed Baby Yoda over to the side so that we have our drawing paper ready. And for the chalk pastel, let me talk to you about the paper a little bit. For chalk pastel, we use paper that has a little bit more tooth. And what that means is that you can see a little bit of texture on the paper. And when you're using chalk pastel, that helps the chalk stick to the paper. So if you don't have it, you can still use regular drawing paper and it'll work out. But if you find that you really like chalk pastel, then going to the store and getting some pastel paper or charcoal paper is going to help those colors really stick to the paper. All right, materials. For colored pencil, let me turn the page. All right, hang on. A little camera adjustment and then we'll show you. There we go. All right. If you're going to be using colored pencil today, here are the colors that we're going to use. For Baby Yoda's body, we're going to use shades of green. Now, if you only have one green, that still works. So don't panic if you don't have the colors that I have. It'll still look beautiful. So I have 3 different colors of greens and I might not even use all of them. I also have a plum purple color, and we're going to be using that for the shadowy areas. So those are the colors that we'll be using for Baby Yoda. And I have chalk pastels that are in those colors too. And I have crayons that are in those colors too. So we've got sort of a yellow green, sort of pea soup green. We have a bright aqua green, a darker pine green, and then a plum or dark purple color. So those 4 colors are going to be for his skin. Then if you look inside his ears, he has those pretty pink glowing ears. So I've got a pink and then I've got a red colored pencil, and I've got a pink and red of the crayons and the chalk as well. For his eyes, we're going to be using a dark brown and a black to color in his eyes. And then finally, for his coat was kind of bland in the picture, so I'm taking it up a notch a little bit. And we're going to be using a peach, a tan, a light blue, and a regular blue color. And those are going to be our 4 colors for his coat. All right, for the drawing piece, no matter whether you're doing colored pencil or chalk or crayons, we're still going to be using pencil to do the drawing. So I'm using just regular pencils. Really, any pencils you use at school will be fine for this drawing. I'm going to use a little bit of a darker color pencil, and that's just so that you can see it a little bit better. But when you're doing the sketching, I want you to draw nice and light, because sometimes what we sketch, we're going to erase after we refine it and get more details in it. So you'll need some type of a pencil and some type of an eraser. It doesn't have to be a fancy art eraser. It can be a regular pink eraser, but you'll want to have those handy. Let's see, the last tool is for chalk pastels only. If you're going to be using chalk pastels, you're going to want some Q-tips, because I like to smear with Q-tips, especially when we get into his face. It's going to be teeny tiny details, and your finger is going to be too big to smear with your finger. All right, we are ready to get started on the drawing. So grab your pencil. And we're going to start with Baby Yoda's face, and we're going to work our way down. So sort of close to the top of the page, I'm going to start by drawing an oval right in the center. And see how I go around and around a couple of times? That just helps me get the shape I want. Every time I go around, I make an adjustment until I get it just right. And then once I get it the way I want, I go back and I just kind of erase the parts that I don't want and clean it up a little bit so that you have a nice clean oval. All right, and then his ears are about the same width as the oval, as his face. So we have the middle of the head here, and we have the middle of the face there. I want you to very lightly draw the cross there in the middle of the oval. That's going to help us when we put the eyes and the nose in, but it's also going to help us with the ears right now too. So if you look at this middle line, his ear is a little bit above on both sides. See those little dots? I'm going to start his ear and go about as far out to the edge of the paper as I can. And it's not quite a straight line, it's a little bit of a curve. And there we go, on both sides. The bottom of the ear, we're going to start at the tip and work our way down to the bottom, but let me give you a point where to try to meet it back in. All right, here's the middle again. Let's go about halfway between this line and this line and put a little dot. And halfway between this point and this point, we'll put another little dot. And his ears have a little bit of a curve. They come down, then in a little bit, and then down, and then in a little bit. So there's a little bit, it's not an S, it's more than an S, but it's a wavy line. Okay, let's try the other side. Down, in, and come right up to that point. All right, he has nice big ears. His ears have a flap, so they kind of fold over. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start at the tip again, and we're going to come, it's almost straight down the middle. Watch, and then you'll see what shape I'm making. It comes down and then stops just a little bit. Look, it's halfway between the bottom of his ear and that midline point. That gives you a good measurement. All right, let's do the same thing on this side. Down and end right there. All right, and you know what? I didn't like that one as much. So sometimes you gotta erase. Nobody's perfect when they're drawing. Everybody needs an eraser. All right, so I'm gonna make this come in just a little bit more so we can see more of that pink part of his ears, because I think that's really pretty. I wanna make sure we have that. All right, so we have some good big ears now. Let's focus on his eyes. So I'm gonna do a big circle on both sides of this middle line, and two things. I'm gonna make them really big, and I wanna see if I can get them the same shape. And sometimes that's hard to do, getting two things to look exactly the same size. So let's see if I can do it on try number one. All right, one. All right, I'm gonna say good enough. I'm gonna say good enough. So two big circles, and we're gonna add way more details to that. But before we do, let's go ahead and put a little placeholder in for his nose. And that's just gonna be a little baby circle. Look, it's below the center line, just by a little bit. And it's about the size of a green pea. It's pretty small. All right, now let's pencil in his mouth. I'm gonna do a couple of little lines. If you look at a person's face, not Baby Yoda, but a person, you'll see sometimes laugh lines. They go from the corner of the nose down to the corners of the mouth. And Baby Yoda has that too. So we're gonna put in those two little laugh lines, and that's gonna give us a good measurement for where we want his mouth to be. So in between those laugh lines, I'm going to do barely a smile. Baby Yoda doesn't do big smiles, but it's just a little smile, and then a little, it turns down on the edges, just a little bit. And then underneath, you can see just a little bit of his lip. So we're gonna put just a little line underneath there for his bottom lip. And right above the bottom of your oval is his little chin. And it's just a little curve there. All right, he's starting to look cute. All right, well, let's give him eyes, because he doesn't look cute until he actually has eyeballs in his eyes. We're going to start with some eyelids. So the eyelid is going to start just a little bit on the outside of your eyeball circle. And it's going to cross over and then come back down. See how it kind of cut across the top edge of that eyeball? That's good, because the eyeball actually covers your eyeball. So it's gonna make it disappear just a little bit, but we want that to happen. Let's see if I can do the same thing on the other side. You go up, cut off just a little bit of the top, and down. And then on the bottom eyelid, it's the same thing. We're just gonna connect, but we're gonna cut off a little bit of that bottom edge as well. So go down and back up, and down and back up. And then, just to clean things up, I'm gonna take my eraser and I'm going to erase the part of the eyeball that the eyelid covered up, because we don't need that line anymore. And while I have my eraser in my hand, it's time to erase what we call the grid lines. So the grid line is the line that goes straight down the middle and the line that goes straight through the eyes. Now that we have our eyeballs and our nose and mouth in place, we don't need that, so we can erase it. And hopefully you drew that grid line light enough that it comes off the paper pretty easily. Okay. You notice that I'm blowing on my paper to get rid of the little eraser bits. I like to do that when I'm using either pencil or chalk pastel, because if you wipe with your hand, it smears the graphite or it smears the chalk. And not only will it get all over your hands, but the oils on your hands can also soak into the paper and you won't love what happens to your drawing. So I try to, just like we're trying not to touch our face, we're trying not to smear our paper. So try to check yourself, and I'll try to do that for myself too. I still mess up sometimes. Okay, let's do a little correction on the shape of his head, and we're gonna give him a few wrinkles because Baby Yoda, even though he's a baby, he has wrinkles already. So let's see, at the top, I'm just, instead of a perfect circle, I'm gonna make just a little dent there and come up and down, up and down. And then the sides of, in between his ear and his face is a little bit straighter than what we have. So I'm gonna straighten that out a little bit and do a little correction. So see, I just kind of adjust as I go. Okay, he has cute chubby cheeks. So we're going to use this outside edge of the oval as our guideline, but we're gonna make his cheeks just a little bit chubbier. They're going to come down and almost like they're gonna connect to that little chin piece. Down. And that just makes his cheeks look a little plumper. All right. Back up to the eyes. He has very deep set eyes, and what that means is that the space between where his eyebrow should go and his eyelid is really deep. And so it's gonna be darker. We need to put in that line so we know where to make that area dark. So it's gonna go way up and down on both sides. It's like a big rainbow arch. So these are not his eyebrows. Baby Yoda really doesn't even have eyebrows. These are just kind of his eye sockets. It's like this part of the eye, but it's really pushed back in there. All right, now that we have those eyebrow sockets, his nose needs a little bit more detail. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna give him his two little nostrils. One is a C shape and one is a backward C shape. And then two little angled dots for his nostrils. And just a little line on both sides so that we know where the bridge of his nose is on both sides. All right, I've got two more things on the face and then we're gonna move down to his body. We want to do a highlight in his eyes so that we remember to leave part of his eyeball white. So if you look at the eye, we want to put in a reflection and that'll give him a little bit of life. And so when I put in a highlight, I always think of the parts of a clock so that I can get the highlight in the same part. So if we have 12 o'clock is directly up, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, hands of a clock. We're gonna put the highlight kind of where 1 and 2 o'clock would be. And it's gonna be kind of an oval right inside of his eye. And we're gonna put it in the same spot on both eyes. It's a nice little reflection there. And it won't be this obvious. This looks really dark, but once we get his eyeballs dark, it won't look quite like that. And last thing, he needs his forehead wrinkles. So he has 4 little wrinkles that go across his forehead, and then you go a little bit higher and he's got 4 more. They're just little tiny rainbow shapes, and they're not as tall as a rainbow. They're very shallow, but just 2 little rows of wrinkles. All right, we have his face. Let's move down to his collar. His collar is 2 rectangles that overlap like this. So they're gonna come way out to where his ears are. So I'm gonna put both of those sides in so you can see how far out we're gonna go. They really go pretty far out because everything he wears is big on him because he's so teeny tiny. All right, so here we go. We're gonna have one that comes down and it's gonna overlap that bottom edge of his oval. We want his chin to be kind of tucked down into his collar. So it's gonna come down and then that's part of it. Now watch what I'm doing. I'm curving all the edges because fabric doesn't really have sharp curves. Everything's kind of softer. So everything is gonna have little soft edges as well. All right, so that's one side of his collar. The other side kind of tucks in there. So I'm gonna start at this top edge and I'm gonna go right along the oval there and come up and down. And then it overlaps. This one's tucked underneath. So jump back over on this side, make a little line down, and then connect it. All right, collar done. Let's move down again, and we're gonna draw a circle where the armhole of his cape is. So let's get a circle in there. We're gonna come back and draw his hand in a moment. I'm gonna keep drawing his outfit that he's wearing, and then we'll add the hands. Don't let me forget, we need hands on Baby Yoda. Okay, so we've got one arm over there. On the other side, he's got a little arm that sticks out by his side, and there is a cuff on the end of that arm. So I'm gonna draw one of those soft edge rectangles on this side. And then I'm gonna jump back up and let's draw his cape. Now it starts here at his armpit and it wiggles down. Let's see, am I off the page yet? No, you can still see me. It goes all the way down to the bottom. Let's go on this side. It goes all the way down to the bottom. And then it's got a really jagged edge. So I'm just gonna do sort of like a wiggly, jagged edge that goes all the way across the bottom and connects the two sides. All right, now that we have that, we can add a few details here. So the part in the middle, it doesn't show a zipper or anything, it just shows sort of a seam. So I'm gonna draw a wiggly line and then I'm going to draw a second one right next to it. And now we have the seam. Let's go back and do his hands. The easier of the two hands is this one down here, hanging down, because you can only see, he's got 3 fingers. You can only see the ends of 2 of them. So there's one down here that's just, it's got a little point at the bottom, and then there's another one. And that's all you can see of them. Just 2 little bumps sticking out the bottom. This one, all right, this is our challenge for the day because this hand is coming at you. It's kind of going like this. And so you're gonna see the wrist, the palm, and all these weird fingers sticking at you. And so I'm gonna explain it as I go because you're gonna say, what? That is crazy looking. And it is a little bit. I'll explain why. All right. We're gonna start where you see his wrist show up inside of the arm sleeve. So it's a little bit, if this is the middle mark right here, it's a little bit below, and we're gonna do sort of like a little smile shape. That's the bottom edge of his wrist, and it comes up like that. The next thing we're gonna draw is the bottom of his palm. All right, let's see if I can make the Yoda hand. So we've got his wrist here, and then you can see right here and right here, there is some parts of the hands that we need to draw. So I'm gonna draw this same shape again. One on this side and one on this side. All right, that's gonna be the base of his hand. Now we have 3 fingers that we have to attach, but they're not sticking straight up. They're coming at us. And when things come at you in a drawing, It's called foreshortening. Now, foreshortening is whenever something's sticking at you, because when something sticks at you, this part looks way bigger than this part back here. And so things take on really funny shapes when we have foreshortening. It's honestly one of the most frustrating things that an artist has to deal with when they're drawing a person, or Baby Yoda in this case. So just bear with me. If we don't get it right, it's no big deal because he's a little guy with 3 fingers. If we mess up, nobody's gonna notice. It'll be okay. All right, but the shape that we're gonna make are ovals for these chubby little fingers that he has. What we're gonna, 1, 2, 3. So finger number 1, here we go. It's an oval. Don't even worry about it connecting, just do the 3 ovals. Here's number 2. There's an oval there. Last one is almost sticking out of the coat. All right, 3 little ovals. The second thing we're gonna do is we're gonna connect the ovals so that you can see the connection between the fingers. So I'm gonna start between here and make a little U shape to connect those 2 fingers. And I'm gonna make another little U shape to connect those 2 fingers. All right, if the bottom of your hand doesn't touch these 2 ovals, let's make that happen now, just so that the hand is all connected. Okay, now we need to add a few more details just to make it look a little bit more hand-like. So we're gonna add his fingernails. Baby Yoda has these kind of crazy looking fingernails. So I'm gonna make a little arch, a little almond shape for each one of his fingernails and put them on the edges. So fingernail, fingernail, fingernail. Last part, and then we'll move on because I don't like this hand, it's frustrating. So the last part is the inside of his palm. Now remember I said his hand is coming here, but there's these little wrinkles that you see inside of a hand. We're gonna put those in so that when we start using our coloring, we know how to shade this. So there's a little wrinkle. You can even look at your own hand to figure this out. There's a wrinkle that comes down that way. There's a wrinkle that comes down that way. And that helps us kind of see all the parts of the hand. All right, one more thing. We're going to add the outside edge of the sleeve. So it's almost like we're forming like a little donut shape around the hand. We're just gonna follow the same line that we've already drawn, and it's gonna run parallel so that we have a ring around his hand. Good. All right, I feel like we've got the basic drawing piece and we're ready to switch over to some coloring. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm going to take down my Baby Yoda so I can see him as my example. And I'm gonna adjust the camera so that hopefully when I draw, you'll be able to see both the chalk version and the colored pencil and the crayon version all at the same time. What was I thinking doing 3 projects at the same time? I don't know. But we're gonna give it a try anyway. All right, so get out your chalk pastels or your colored pencils or your crayons because it's time to do some coloring. We're going to start with Baby Yoda's skin. And his skin, even though he's a little green animal, there's a lot of other colors that you use to make shadows. And instead of just using black, I like to use other colors of the rainbow as my shadow colors because I think it makes a prettier picture. So let's start with a light purple color. So if you're using chalk pastel, we're going to use a light lavender color. If you're using colored pencil, we're going to use our purple, but we're going to press down super duper lightly. And if you're using crayon, if you have a lavender crayon, you can use lavender. It's called Mauvelicious. I'm gonna give that a try and see how that, if you don't have Mauvelicious, you can find just your regular purple and you're gonna color really softly so it makes a lighter color purple. All right, let's start with the chalk version. In the chalk version, I'm going to start underneath his chin, and I'm going to give that a shadow. So when I color with chalk pastel, I'm kind of not going right on the tip. I'm turning it and using the corner of the chalk pastel to color, and we're going to add a little shadow on the bottom edge of his cheek. So I'm coloring inside the line of his face, but I'm not smearing it yet. We'll smear it in just a little bit. All right, inside that cheek line, give him a little bit of color. I'm gonna go underneath his smile a little bit, give him a little bit of color there. And then right underneath his eyes, I'm gonna give him a little bit of this color right there and right there. I'm also going to go up the sides of his face just a little bit and inside this dark spot on his eyelids. All right, let's do just a little bit where his ear connects to his face. And then we're going to give that color a rest. Let's see if I can show you how I would do that with colored pencil or crayon. Let's see if I can keep making the switch back and forth. This might be a little crazy. All right, with crayon, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lightly go around the bottom edge. I don't like Mauvelicious. I'm going to just go to regular purple. I'm going to go lightly around the bottom edge, under his eyes, a little bit around his ears. That part is called his temple. And in his eyelids. I'm going to fill those in. Same thing for this one. I'm going to go, and I'm very lightly drawing. I'm really not pressing down hard at all. Okay. All right, let's switch to a darker purple. All right, so I'm gonna go to more of a deeper purple there. And I'm gonna outline his chin, give a little bit more of that dark shading both underneath his mouth and just inside the top edge of those eyelid shapes. Maybe a little bit on the outside edge of his cheeks. So if you're using colored pencil or crayons, you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to just make your purple a little bit darker in those areas. I'm going to try to quickly do that on both of my pieces. All right, so if you can see, I've darkened it up just a little bit on both the crayon version and the colored pencil version. All right, let's add some green since he's a green little guy. I'm gonna start with my darker color green. So I actually don't really have a darker color green for the chalk pastel. So let's see what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna choose just a kind of a bright medium green tone. And I'm gonna go ahead and color in his ears. I'm leaving a little bit of a white outline. We're gonna go back in with a lighter color. So I don't want it to be completely solid. So see how I just went down the middle? I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. Down the middle. And then I'm also going to just outline his bottom of his ears. Let's put a little bit on his nose. I know you can't see. Can you see that a little bit? Yeah, you can kind of. I put a little bit of green on his outside nostrils there. I'm even going to outline those laugh lines that we talked about before. And I'm going to put a little bit on the top edge of his cheek and even go ahead and color the little wrinkles that he has on the top of his forehead. And then last thing, the top edge of those eye socket shapes. We're gonna make those a little bit darker. All right, if you have a light green or a medium green crayon, we would do the same thing with our crayons. Whoops, things are falling. There we go. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna do this super fast since I showed you all the sections on the chalk pastel. This is the same thing. I'm gonna go over the eyebrows, the little wrinkles. I'm gonna color his nose this color, the bottom edge of his lips, his little laugh lines, down the center of his ears, and around the outside edge of his ears. And that's it for that one. All right, ear number 1's done. Here we go, ear number 2. Fill in that part. Let's do a little bit down here. Okay. Alrighty, let's go to a lighter green. So I need a green that's just a little bit brighter than what we were doing. So I don't know how well this shows up, but they're just barely two different colors. One's just a little bit lighter. The lighter green is what I'm going to do to fill in little Yoda's face. So going down the center of his nose, underneath his eyes, under his nose, his little chin. I'm going to put a little bit on his cheeks. So I almost colored the whole thing in. I'm also going to go right up to the edge of that middle line in his ears and make sure that that's all green. But the top edge I'm gonna leave empty, and I'll show you why in just a minute. All right, so his face is almost all colored in except for the top edge. I'm gonna go back and do that with the colored pencil and crayon in a moment, but let me show you the next step and then I'll do all those steps together to catch the other two versions up. We're going to use a really light blue color. And the really light blue color is just going to make everything really pale and pretty. And Baby Yoda just has just a really pale green blue color. So I wanted to try to get that in our drawing. So I'm going to fill in the top of his head with this color. I'm going to go between the wrinkle lines and fill that piece of it in. I'm going to fill in the top edge of his ears. And you can overlap the color that's already there a little bit. So that green can have a little bit of blue covering it up. And they'll probably blend a little bit right as you're coloring. It's kind of pretty. And then I'm gonna do the same thing over here. All right, so let's see how this works with a crayon. I'm going to take my lightest green and I'm gonna fill in his face. And see how I'm overlapping the purple? So you can still see the purple kind of shining through the green as I add the green. All right, let me add some light blue to this. Okay, he's looking cute. Let's do this next one. All right, filling in his face, under his nose, his little cheeks. My girls are going bananas upstairs. I'm not sure what they're doing. Okay, cute little face, and then you finish him off with that blue up top. Cute, cute, cute. All right, here comes my favorite part. We get to make his ears glow. Oh, I love it so much. But before we do that, let's do a little blending. So if you are using chalk pastel, then you're going to do some blending. If you're using colored pencil or crayon, you don't really blend these two products. But what you can do is go back over and darken any areas that you think need to be darkened. So for the chalk pastel piece, I'm going to take my Q-tip. I'm just going to start at the top and sort of rub together the areas that have more than one color. And it's just going to soften them. It's going to grind them down into the paper so that it holds a little bit better. And it's going to just smooth everything out. But I like to stay inside the shape. So you see how while I'm working the purple, I'm blending, but I'm staying inside, because if I just went like this, you're going to smear that chalk all over. So you want to work within each little section. And then when I'm done, I give it a little and blow off the dust that kind of smears around. All right, so I'm going to go around the edge of his face and soften that purple. And then I'm going to soften that little line under his mouth a little bit. Okay. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to soften this green line that's inside his ears. So I'm just going to take my Q-tip and I'm going to pull that green towards the center of the ear, and see how it kind of smears, but it also pulls some green in there. We want that to happen because the green and the pink that's about to happen sort of blend together inside the ears. And so that's going to be a really pretty transition once we add the pink. All right, let me go back in here and just soften this part. So everything that I have drawn already, I'm just rubbing over it with my Q-tip to soften it. That's all I'm doing. But sometimes you'll want a line to stay aligned. So for instance, see how I left alone the laugh lines and I left alone the little chin bump right there. I don't want those to be smeared away. So sometimes you have to decide where you want to have things to be a hard line and where you want a soft line. Okay, he's looking cute. Let's pick up our pink. So I have a pretty bright, it's almost a coral pink color with my soft pastel. And I think this is gonna make those kind of like glowing ears like you see on little pigs. They're so cute. So I'm going to go inside right along the edge of that ear fold. And I'm gonna put this pink in there. And I'm gonna go up right to where the green little soft blend starts. I'm not gonna go all the way to the edge of the ear. And do it on this side too. Okay, and then before I blend that, I'm going to pick up my red and add just a little bit of red, sort of right as you get closer to where his ear meets the side of his head. It's just a little bit deeper shade of red there. Now I'm ready to do a little bit of blending. So I'm just going to softly rub it back and forth and push that pink towards the green area. And do it on this side too. And we have some cute pink ears. All right, let's see if I can do that quickly with my other two guys. So I'm gonna start with my pink. I'm gonna add that inside the ear. Let me add the pink with the crayon. And then I'm going to go back in with a little bit of red and just darken that part that's closer to the side of his face. Okay. All right, we're ready to work on his eyes. His eyes are going to be black and brown. And so I'm going to start with the brown. And I'm going to fill up the inside of his eyeball. Now, his eyeball doesn't fill the whole eye. If you take a closer look, we've got this edge here and this edge here. So there's actually white parts of the eye that we're going to leave white. But we are going to fill in the inside there. So take your brown, and I've got sort of a chocolate brown. I don't know how well you can see the color there. But it's a pretty dark brown. And I'm going to fill in this eyeball, but I'm going to leave the little highlight area, that little oval that we put inside. I'm going to leave that empty. And then once I've done the inside of the eye, except for the little highlight, I'm gonna take my black and I'm just gonna do the inside of the edges of the eyeball. So very carefully, I like to use the corner of my pastel so that I can make sort of a fine line there. And I go under the eyelid, down the right side, and down the other side. Okay. All right. So he's looking cute. We need to smear those so that they look blended in. And when you smear them, I do teeny tiny circles inside that eyeball, and that's going to blend the black into the brown just a little bit, so they don't look like separate colors. they look like they transition really smoothly from one to the next. All right, he's starting to look super cute. Let's do the same with these two. All right, starting with my colored pencil. I'm gonna fill in the eye. And then do the black edges around the eyeball. And you can make, on the colored pencil version, you can make his eyes pretty dark by just layering some black on top of the brown parts of his eyes. I think that looks nice. Same thing with this crayon version. We're gonna do brown first. Fill in those eyes. And then go back with a black, and we're gonna do the outside edges. So I wanted to show you how you could do this project with whatever you have at home. You don't have to have fancy chalk pastels. You can really do art projects with anything that you can find, and it's still going to turn out super cute. All right, we're going to do his two hands just so that we're done with the green skin color, and then we'll work on his coat to finish it off. And the coat's pretty easy. I feel like most of the details in his face. So let's pick up our purple, our dark purple, and we're going to add in some shadows. So I'm gonna start and trace the lines that I did for the bottom of the hands there. And I'm also going to trace the line that I did for the bottom of his wrist that's poking out. The little wrinkles that are inside his hand get to be darkened as well. And the bottom edge of each finger. So just sort of the bottom edge of each of these ovals are going to be dark also. Okay, once you have those dark, then we're going to come down and we're going to do both hands at the same time. So I'm going to put some purple on the right side of each of these little fingers and the top edge so that it's got a lot of shadow on it. And then go back to the green that you used to fill in the center of his ears, that nice medium green color. And let's fill in his skin. So there's his wrist, there's the inside of his hand, and his fingertips. And then we're going to fill in the rest of his little fingertips that are sticking down there as well. And with our Q-tip, we're going to blend those two together. So we've got purple and green blending together, which seems like a strange combination, but when you're doing monsters and dragons and those types of fantasy creatures, you use this combination a lot, so it kind of makes sense. Okay, one little hand done, and then this doesn't require much blending, but I'll go ahead and give it a little blend. Okay, that looks cute. Let me do these two so that we're all caught up. All right, purple. My supply table's getting a little messy as I go. Okay, here we go. All right, purple first. All right, so I did the bottom edges of the fingers, and I did all the wrinkles that are inside. So just like I did with the chalk pastel, same exact thing. And then I'm going to go down to these other two little fingers and fill those in. And then color the rest in with my green. All right, let's do the same thing with my colored pencil version. All right, so I'm going to fill in this with purple. And then switch to green. And the green I'm really coloring on top of the purple, because the purple's a darker color, it'll show through and it'll act like a shadow, which is what we want it to do. Okay, those are looking good. Back to this guy. All right, let's talk about the cape. His cape is going to be peach, sort of a tan color, and a light blue color. And the light blue is going to be our shadow color. So we're going to start with a tan color and fill in sort of the medium shades that you see in his coat. So if you did see the photo references that I provided, I had two of them, and they're listed down in the comments too. You don't have to print them out, but if you are curious as to what in the world I'm doing, you can print this out, and then you can see all the little shadows and wrinkles in his cape, and that'll help you understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then for his face, I really liked this version because it showed all the shapes and the colors really well. So these two references, if you're really getting into it, you can print those off and use those as references for yourself. But otherwise, just follow along and trust that I'm looking at something to see the real colors and shadows that we're dealing with. All right, so we're going to take this medium tone and we're going to fill in the center of this first rectangle on his collar. And I'm going to go almost to the edge. I left a little bit of a white shape all the way around the edge. Then we're going to fill in a line that goes across, not all the way at the top, but a little bit further down from the top, and it's going to go under this little flap also. I'll put a little bit down at the bottom here too. Okay, these are kind of funny shapes until we get the other colors going. Let's jump down to this arm. His arm is almost entirely this color. And again, I'm not using the tip of my or chalk pastel, I'm using the edge of it and rubbing it on. And then for the cuff down here, I'm not going to fill in the whole thing. I'm just going to fill in sort of the bottom edge there. All right, over on this side, we're going to do just a little bit inside this ring, like that. And then we're going to go down the inside edge of his cape. We're also going to fill in a lot. This part has a big shadow on it, so I'm going to go ahead and come down and back up and fill in all that. And then I'm going to continue and fill in this whole seam that we drew, going down the middle. And a little bit down here. I'm going to go up this edge as well. right, I feel pretty good about that. Let me have you switch to your peach color. The peach color is going to go almost all the places that don't have any color in it. So I'm going to go along the top edge of this one, straight in the center, fill in the rest of that side. I'm going to go around the edges of this other rectangle. I'm going to go the top edge of his cuff and fill that in. This circle, the ring that goes around his hand, that all gets peach. We're going to do the other part darker, but this is all going to be peach colored. And then we're just going to fill in the rest of his cape with peach. Okay, so just for the matter of time, I'm not going to show you every step in the crayon and colored pencil for this part because you can follow the same shapes and the same coloring that I did on this version with those two, and it'll look great. So I don't want to keep repeating the same thing over and over again, but I think if you use this while you're doing your colored pencil or crayon version, it's still going to look fantastic. All right, before we add the shadows to this, we're going to do some blending. Now, we could use a Q-tip, but because this is such a bigger space, I'm going to switch to my finger. So when you switch to your finger, make sure your finger's not wet because that's really going to leave a weird spot on your paper. But I'm going to do little circles with my finger, and I like to go over each section all the way. And as I blend, you'll see that it softens and it makes a nice transition from one color to the other so that you don't see these sharp changes from the tan to the peach. Looks like they belong together. Okay, that side's done. Okay, so we have the color, but we don't have any shadow. So we're going to take a light blue color. Our light blue color, it's not the same color that we used for his forehead. It's a little bit darker. So you might want to play around with the different blues until you get one that you think looks good. But I'm going to use a pastel. It's actually called Ultramarine Light, but yours might not have the same names. So it's just a nice pretty light blue. We're going to use this as a shadow because blue is the opposite on the color wheel from orange. And when you mix them together, it makes a nice gray shadowy color. So instead of adding black or gray, which will dull down and make your drawing kind of look kind of grayed out and not quite as brilliant, we're going to use the complementary color to orange, and that's going to give us a really pretty shadow. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go inside the sleeve, and you see all the white areas that I still have? Those need to be filled up with this blue color. So I'm going to go around the bottom edge of his wrist that's poking out. Then I'm going to go between the fingers and fill up that empty space. And we'll blend it in a little bit so it'll look a little bit better. And then let's start working on the cape. I'm going to start from the top down. All right, this top edge is in the shadow. So I'm going to line the inside that. I'm also going to bring a few lines in. So there's a few little wrinkles that we can capture just by adding that color there. And then there's a little shadow right there where they connect. On the bottom edge of the second piece of his collar, we're going to line the whole thing. And there's a little wrinkle on this side as well that I wanted to capture, so we'll do a little bit more right there. Then it's going to be super dark underneath the collar. So I'm going to really fill this in. Okay, so it kind of goes down the middle and leaves a shadow on his belly. And then we need to put in some shadows here where his arm is laying against the rest of his body. So there's some shadow right there on the edge of the sleeve. And we'll go ahead and line that whole edge and add some shadow at the bottom edge too. All right, let's keep going down this side. He's got a few wrinkles, so I'm gonna add a line in and then just add a little bit of shading along the edge. We're gonna shadow the bottom edge here all the way across. And I'm gonna lightly line the seam that goes up the middle, just to make it stand out a little bit more. All right, over on the other side of his cape, we need to add some shadows around the bottom edge of his sleeve because there would be a lot of wrinkles and things happening with this fabric. So I'm making a C shape around this bottom edge like that. And then we're gonna add 2 more lines that's gonna make it look a little bit more sleeve-like. I'm gonna add one line that comes down, kind of shows you that his hand is stretched way out. And then I'm going to do another one coming down this way so that you can see that it's causing wrinkles in the fabric where he's lifting his arm. And we'll do just a little bit more down here. Okay. All right, I feel like I've got all the big blocks in for shadowing. So now I'm going to do some more blending. Now when you blend, it's going to mix with the color below and it's going to make it a little bit more softer of a color so it won't be quite so bright. So especially this part that comes down the front of his body, I'm going to blend that in so it softens. I'm going to carefully just go around my C shape there. And then I'm going to go down the right side of this shadow. So you can keep one side of the line, really strong line, and you can soften the other side of the line. And it'll make it look like there's a fold in that fabric. All right, I'm going to leave this part alone just because I like the way that it's outlining there. But down along the edge, we can soften this up a little bit. And we'll soften this side of the wrinkle as well. So again, I left one side of the wrinkle hard, and then I'm using my finger to soften the other side of the wrinkle. Okay, let's jump up to the collar here. This doesn't take too much. Okay, the last things that I'm going to do is I'm just going to darken some of the shadow areas because we have everything in place, but to really make him pop and stand out, I would do a couple of things. So pick up your dark purple and we're going to just darken it in a few areas. The first area is I'm going to go under little corners of his mouth and add just a little bit of purple on those corners so that it has a little bit more of a shadow. I'm going to do the same thing on the top edge of his little eye sockets. And when I do this, I'm not going to blend it. Well, I might blend that. I lied. I'm going to blend it a little bit. But we want these last final details to give it a punch, and so we don't want to soften it too much. All right, let's make this area that goes down into his collar a little bit darker. Oh my goodness, there's something I missed. Look at this. He has a little pink on his cheeks that make his cheeks look super cute. So I need to go back, find my pink, and we're just gonna add a touch of pink to the apples of his cheeks, very softly, and then blend that in because he's just got the tiniest bit of a glow on his little cheeks there, and I think that makes him look extra cute. Okay. And let's see, let me go back to my purple. If your nose isn't dark enough, you can add a little bit of purple to the bottom edge of the nose. You can add a little bit of purple to his temple area so that it looks like it's a little bit darker on those edges. We can go underneath his collar here and darken the really sharp shadows that you would see in the picture, like right in his armpit. That's usually really dark, so we'll add that in there. And if you look at the pictures, sometimes that will help you decide where you want to add these things. But when I'm doing a drawing or a painting, I like to take a color and work it through the whole picture, and that makes your eye jump from place to place and look at where all the purple is at one time. So I think that brings the picture together. Let's make his armhole a bit darker. In fact, I might even grab the black just because this might be one of the darkest spots in the whole drawing. So we really want it to be dark deep down in there. I might just outline the bottom edge of his little fingernails so you can see them a little bit better. All right, I'm feeling pretty good about it. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we got it. So I'm going to do a couple things. One is when I stop the video, I'm going to post it, and then it'll be there for you to replay it should you want to go back and try it. Just a reminder that I do have the reference photos and also the drawing already posted on the previous post that said when I was going to start this particular drawing art lesson. And I would love to see any examples or any attempts, any drawings that you all do, because I just love seeing that you're out there and you're doing art, and I just think it's a great way to make your day go by and focus on something that's kind of super fun and relaxing. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing all of your baby Yodas. And I'll be doing my next art lesson on Monday, March 16th. So I will post what I'm doing on Monday morning. All right, take care. I enjoyed doing it. Bye, guys.